We were going on and on through 2009, trying to figure out what was going on. And then we get to 2010, and what happens in 2010? The estate tax goes away. And I'm sure a lot of you heard about this, it was all over the papers. You had guys like George Steinbrenner, who died in 2010, and there's going to be no estate tax, and several other fairly wealthy individuals, billionaires. And all of this money that would be available to the federal government just doesn't come in, okay? And we're saying this is insanity. And at first we thought, well, they'll enact something in January or February 2010 and make it retroactive, which incidentally there is law that says that they can. But the further you get into the year, the harder and harder it is to become retroactive. So we had the midterm elections, and the Republicans took over the House, or were going to take over the House. So during the lame duck session, the Republicans and the president got together and came up with a new law. And the new law is the Tax Relief, Unemployment Insurance Authorization and Job Creation Act of 2010. And I don't have a great acronym for it, so I'm just going to call it the 2010 Act, if that's okay with you guys. Now, what the law says is that effective for decedents dying on or after January 1st, 2011, federal estate tax exemption was increased to $5 million. So that's a pretty nice jump up. It's not as good as zero estate taxes, but $5 million, you figure, between a husband and wife, you got $10 million you can pass tax-free. Not good for trusted estates attorneys. We're thinking, what the heck are we going to do now? We lost all this entire client base of people between $3.5 and $5 or $7 and $10 million. But fortunately, there's some other things in there that's good for me. They also increased the federal gift tax exemption to $5 million. Now this was really a surprise, because I think what happened was the Republicans felt good about their midterm victory, and they said, what the heck, we'll push for everything. So they pushed for this $5 million exemption, and I guess the president was in a compromising mood. So they increased the gift tax exemption to $5 million. And what they did was, and this was the way it used to be, they reunified the gift and estate tax exemption. And that's how it had been for many, many years until the estate tax exemption went over $1 million. That the gift tax and the estate tax were in sync, meaning you could give away a certain amount of assets during your life or at your death, but it was the same amount of money. And if you gave it away during life, you had that much less credit available at death. And it was only when the gift tax exemption went above, when the estate tax exemption went above $1 million, that there was this, for lack of a better term, decoupling of or disunification of the estate and gift tax exemption. So they were reunified for this year. The federal estate and gift tax rates were reduced to 35%. So now we're talking about a much more palatable figure. When I started practicing, the top estate and gift tax rate was 55%. So this is a pretty significant reduction. And then the big one. This was something that had been talked about at some point over the last 3 or 4 years. Is, boy, wouldn't this be interesting? And we never really thought it would come to pass, but it came to pass, and that is what they call portability.
Please take a moment to write down Lawline.com's first verification code. Lawline.com's first verification code is the word tradition, all in lowercase, TRADITION, tradition.
And that was thrown in for the first time, and I'll explain to you what that means in a second. Now, the President and Congress, in their infinite wisdom, decided, well, it was good for Bush to have expiring tax laws, so we'll have self-expiring tax laws. In other words, this law will expire on its own unless Congress acts. So what the law that came out in 2010, the 2010 Tax Act, stated that the law was going to expire on its own without further action by Congress, and we know how well that went last time, on December 31st, 2012. Another thing that came in the 2010 Act was something called the full step-up in basis. And some of you who practice in this area will know what that means. For all the time that we've had the estate tax, well, not all the time, but for a very significant time we've had the estate tax, what we've had is what's called a step up in basis.